Surabaya, Indonesia, the Philippine Navy has reached another milestone in its modernization drive with the launch of its third Tarlac-class landing platform dock, a large amphibious vessel expected to enter service as the future BRP Ilocos Norte. Built by PAL Indonesia, this is not just another addition to Manila's naval inventory. It is a signal that the Philippines is bracing for a more dangerous regional environment, one where maritime power, logistics, and rapid response matter just as much as diplomacy. The timing says a lot. The launch comes as tensions keep rising in the South China Sea, particularly in the waters Manila calls the West Philippine Sea. For years, the Philippines has faced mounting pressure from Chinese Coast Guard ships, maritime militia vessels, and military patrols around contested areas like Scarborough Shoal and Second Thomas Shoal. These waters matter for fishing and energy resources, but they are also part of a much wider strategic contest involving the United States, Japan, Australia, and other regional players. That is why this new vessel matters. The future BRP Ilocos Norte is built to support amphibious operations, strategic sealift, maritime security missions, and humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. In practical terms, it gives the Philippine Navy the ability to move troops, vehicles, supplies, and equipment across an island nation that has to defend thousands of kilometers of coastline. In peacetime, it can support disaster response after typhoons, earthquakes, and floods. In a crisis, it can help move forces quickly to wherever they are needed. For the Philippines, that capability is no longer optional. It is becoming essential. The country is an archipelago, and its geography is both a strength and a vulnerability. Long coastlines, scattered islands, exposed maritime communities. When pressure builds at sea, Manila cannot rely on statements or small patrol boats alone. It needs ships that can carry weight, sustain operations, and support forces stationed far from major bases. This new landing platform dock is part of that answer. The vessel runs about 124 meters long, with a broad deck and internal space built for personnel, vehicles, and mission equipment. It is part of a follow-on order placed after the first two Tarlac-class ships, BRP Tarlac and BRP Davao del Sur, entered service years earlier. This new hull is described as an improved version, incorporating changes requested by Manila, including a larger side ramp and better vehicle deck clearance. Technical as that sounds, it matters in real operations. It makes it faster and easier to load and unload vehicles, move supplies, and keep missions running under pressure. At the launch ceremony, Philippine and Indonesian officials presented the vessel as a symbol of defense cooperation. But behind the ceremony sat a larger message. Manila is working to close the gap between its security challenges and its naval capacity. Vice Admiral J. Osma Ambrosio Q, as a Plata flag officer in command of the Philippine Navy, said LPD is a very useful, very effective platform for the Philippine Navy. That asset. Scandal, it can carry troops, vehicles, landing craft, relief supplies, and equipment, and it lets the Navy operate farther from its main bases, including on missions beyond Philippine waters when required. This is exactly why Beijing will be watching closely. The Philippines is a treaty ally of the United States, and under President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., Manila has moved closer to Washington, Tokyo, Canberra, and other partners, a shift that has reshaped the regional balance. China, under President Xi Jinping, has repeatedly warned against what it calls outside interference and military bloc building in the Asia-Pacific, arguing that expanded military cooperation between the United States, the Philippines, and Japan risks confrontation. Manila, for its part, insists its actions are defensive, necessary because its vessels, fishermen, and maritime rights continue to face pressure at sea. That is the central conflict. China says it is protecting its sovereignty. The Philippines says it is defending its own territory, its exclusive economic zone, and the rules-based order. Different language, often the same waters. Scarborough Shoal remains one of the most sensitive flashpoints, a traditional fishing ground off the coast of Zambales and a symbol of the wider dispute. China has maintained a heavy Coast Guard and maritime presence there for years, and the Philippines continues to protest, insisting its rights must be respected under international law. Recent developments have only sharpened the tension after the Philippines dangerous. U.S. forces are expanding access and exercises in the region. Japan is deepening security ties with the Philippines. Australia is more active in maritime cooperation. China is sending larger ships farther from its own shores and leaning on its Coast Guard and maritime militia to press its claims. Taiwan remains another potential flashpoint. In this climate, every new ship, missile system, and military exercise is being watched closely by rival powers. For Manila, the message is clear. The Philippines cannot afford to stop the weak at sea. For decades, the Philippine military made do with limited equipment and slow modernization, often relying on hand-me-down vessels from allies, but the security environment has outpaced that old approach. The West Philippine Sea dispute has forced a rethink, pushing Manila toward patrol ships, missile-capable vessels, aircraft, radar systems, coastal defenses, and logistics platforms built to sustain operations over distance. The future BRP Ilocos Norte fits squarely into that broader push. It is not the most heavily armed ship in the region, not a destroyer, not a missile cruiser, but its value lies in what it can carry and where it can go. In a crisis, logistics can decide whether a country holds its position. A navy that cannot move supplies cannot sustain resistance. A military that cannot move troops across islands cannot defend an archipelago effectively. That is why strategic sealift matters. It lets the Philippines shift forces between islands, support remote outposts, bring equipment closer to crisis zones, and respond to disasters without waiting on foreign help. In the current regional climate, that kind of resilience functions as its own form of deterrence. PTPAL's leadership also acknowledged the difficulties behind the project. President Director Kahar Dan Dejened said despite global geopolitical challenges that impacted the supply chain and caused some schedule adjustments, PTPAL was able to maintain optimal internal performance. That statement points to a broader reality of modern defense projects. Warships are not built in isolation. They depend on supply chains, shipyards, technology, budgets, and political will. And in a world already strained by conflicts and shipping disruptions, completing a naval vessel is itself a strategic achievement. For Indonesia, the launch also underscores its growing role in Southeast Asia's defense industry. PTPAL has already built earlier vessels for the Philippine Navy, and this new ship D pens that relationship, a reminder that Manila's modernization is not only about deepening ties with Washington, but about building capacity with regional partners who understand the same maritime environment. Still, China will see the bigger pattern. Under President Marcos, Manila has grown more public, more assertive, and more willing to expose Chinese actions at sea, allowing journalists on patrol flights and releasing footage of water cannon incidents and dangerous maneuvers. A transparency campaign that has put Beijing under greater international scrutiny. The United States, meanwhile, continues to reaffirm its defense commitment to the Philippines. The two countries hold major joint exercises, and the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement gives U.S. forces rotational access to select Philippine sites, some of which face Taiwan and the South China Sea, a fact that makes them strategically significant in any future regional crisis. Beijing does not see these moves as isolated Philippine decisions. It views them as part of a broader U.S.-led effort to contain China's rise and limit its reach in the Western Pacific. Chinese officials have warned that outside forces. China sees that buildup, especially with U.S. backing, as a hostile move and responds with more patrols and sharper warnings. Manila then reads those actions as proof it needs even more capability, and the cycle continues. This new warship enters that environment. It will not shift the balance of power overnight. China's Navy remains far larger. Its Coast Guard is the biggest in the world, and Beijing has artificial island bases, long-range missiles, and a growing blue water fleet. Manila cannot match China ship for ship, and it does no need to. It only needs to make pressure more costly to show it can move, respond, document, resupply, and hold its ground. The vessel's humanitarian role matters just as much. The Philippines is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world, and every year storms test the government's ability to deliver aid quickly. A ship built to carry relief goods, vehicles, medical support, and personnel can save lives in peacetime. But in the current climate, even humanitarian-capable ships carry strategic weight. A vessel that delivers aid can also deliver troops. A platform built for disaster response can also support sovereignty missions. That flexibility is exactly why landing platform docks are so valuable. All of this unfolds as China's own naval reach keeps expanding. sending more advanced ships farther into the Pacific to project power and challenge U.S. influence. That makes the Philippines' location even more significant. The challenge is balancing deterrence with diplomacy. The Philippines does not want war its economy. Fishermen, coastal communities, and overseas workers would all suffer from one, but it cannot ignore the repeated pressure in its own waters either. For President Xi, the challenge runs the other way. China wants to project strength and defend its claims, but aggressive moves risk pushing neighboring countries closer to the United States. Every water cannon incident and every dangerous maneuver near disputed waters gives Manila one more reason to deepen its alliances, meaning Chinese pressure may be building the very coalition it warns against. In the end, this is not just a story about one ship. It is about a smaller U.S. ally trying to build the tools to withstand pressure from a far larger power, about Southeast Asia's growing weight in the rivalry between China and the West, and about a Pacific where every move at sea now carries political consequence. The Philippines is not declaring war, and it is not trying to become a naval superpower, but it is making clear that it intends to defend its waters, strengthen its fleet, support its allies, and prepare for crises before they arrive. The future BRP Ilocos Norte now stands as part of that message, a ship built for movement, support, and response, representing a country that knows the sea around it is changing, and that survival may depend on being ready before the next confrontation begins.